Good evening and welcome to our council meeting this September the 9th of 2024. We're going to call this meeting to order. We're going to start out with our invocation provided by our Fire Chief Ryan Baker. We appreciate you doing that, followed by the Boy Scout Troop 59. If you would, please stand with me.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for our country. We thank you for what this body represents. God, we ask that you look after us, guide our decisions, guide our actions. Forgive us for our sins. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Color guard, advance. Color guard, post the colors. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. Salute, pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, families of Mount Holly, I'm sorry, it's been a rough day today, my mind is gone. Tonight, I'd just like to make it brief and say, you know, school has started back in. There's a lot of sports going on right now. There's a lot of activities going on right now. We've got Halloween around the corner. We've got all kinds of fall festivals coming up around the corner. Let's be careful and let's watch out for our kids. Let's be safe around our kids. Let's make sure that they're here tomorrow to be leaders of this community and take over this community. So I encourage you tonight as you're out and about in this wonderful weather with the fall colors getting ready to come around. Keep an eye out for those little ones running around on the streets that mom and dad may have got sidetracked and don't see where they're at. Thank you. Good to see you, sir.
You may be seated. And I'd like to thank Troop 59 for always being here for our Pledge of Allegiance, and thank Chief Baker for doing our invocation. We need to set the agenda. If there's any changes, I need a motion to set the agenda. Motion by Mr. Huff, second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? Motion is approved. And we have 7 items on the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve that if there's no changes. Mr. Meadows and Ms. Shoemaker, all in favor? Motion passes. Okay, we'll go to our presentations. Discussion of proposed pumpkin piddle paddle fall event. Ms. Chloe Clary.
Say that real fast.
Hello, good evening. I'm excited to share something with you that we've been working on for a little bit this evening. So I've rounded out my first full year, and I've been trying to look at our event calendar and see if there were any holes or anything it felt like we were kind of missing. And when you look at, you know, the community as a whole, fall is a busy time, but we're not putting on much in the fall. So I wanted to come up with something more unique, something that's not necessarily Halloween-centric, but very fall, very family-oriented. So I've come up with this idea of the pumpkin piddle paddle. So the concept of this is a pumpkin flotilla, and you may really be wondering what that would look like. So in just a moment, I'll give you a visual more of that. But this is going to provide an opportunity for our community to be involved in something that we're creating. It will be super unique to us. Right now, they're only doing this in Cary, and then they do it in Central Park, New York. And in both of those locations, they're working with the lake. We'll be working with the river, which is a resource that is very unique to us and something that we capitalize on. So this event will allow us to expand that connection with community and nature and just speak to who we are and be something that, you know, we're not going to see right next door because they don't have what we have right next door. So here is a little video. I'll just share a couple seconds of it, but this is kind of what it's going to look like. We'll invite members of our community to bring jack-o'-lanterns. They're going to drop them off with us, and we're going to put them on display in a parade of sorts. So we'll watch from River Street Park, and the kayaks will carry our jack-o'-lanterns right along, and we'll all get to enjoy in this and just watch our fun little pumpkins float by. So as you can see, this one's more on like a lake, so they're a little bit more still. Ours are going to move with the water and really speak to the character of the river, which I think is neat. So I'll let you guys look at that for just a second. I'm going to scoot a little farther here. You can see that there are a couple different like strands with the kayaks. If it wants to work for me. It doesn't. So now you'll see the other kayak enter. But they break them up a little bit to make it last a little longer, which I think is a unique thought process with that. But moving along, just a little bit more details of this. We're wanting to do this on Saturday, October 26th. I have it set for 5 to 8 p.m. Realistically, we would start this around 6:30, 6:45, right when we've hit sunset, just good enough to be able to see these well. We are going to host this at River Street Park. We'll be able to stand. They'll enter from above the park, so we'll have viewing all along the back side of the park. In the future, this very well could go much farther than that, come down by OMB. Perhaps it takes off at Muddy River one day. But this year we want to start at River Street and see what we can do here. We'll restart this. I have a bounce house booked. I'm going to get some food trucks and just try to create a fun atmosphere for families to come and hang out while they wait. We're already at a park that we have and invested in and a beautiful space, so we'll be able to enjoy that along with the DJ and everything else the night will enjoy and entail. So that is what I've been working on and what I'm looking forward to. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to help shake out what this pumpkin piddle paddle will look like for you.
Any questions? Ms. Shoemaker?
I'll say I don't have a question, but I love the idea and the initiative, and I love the idea of a new event for the fall. So thank you very much for doing all that. I know it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I like it.
Cool.
Great job, Chloe.
And then to add in a little bit, he'll be coming up soon behind me, but we have a wonderful Eagle Scout that's decided to try to help us take on this project of building these floats. So you'll hear a little bit more about those details with him. And I did want to kind of highlight on the name, the Pumpkin Piddle Paddle. We know that we fight with weather a lot, so we could very well fight with weather with the river as well if the water's too high, if the water's too crazy. So I tried to come up with a name that could, you know, kind of hint at something other than the water. So if we ended up not being able to have this event on the water, we would use the pumpkins the community would bring in still and create little lighted paths for people just to kind of walk through and enjoy. That way we can have this event, whether nature's totally with us or not, because I think that's important to try to create something that can be a staple and be flexible with, especially for a first time. So that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Clary. All right, next we have the Eagle Scout project proposals. Mr. Jusko.
So thank you, Mayor and Council. Just following up with what Chloe mentioned, the first Eagle Scout project is going to be from Kyle Rader. He's going to be proposing to build the pumpkin flotillas that we're going to be using for River Street Park for the pumpkin piddle paddle, and he presented this information to the Parks and Recreation Commission at the August meeting. So I'm going to hold him for him, and he's going to talk a little bit about them. So.
Hello, my name is Kyle Rader. I'm a Life Scout working on my Eagle Scout in Troop 21. And for my Eagle Scout project, I'm going to be making 36 of these pumpkin flotillas. Each one is made of wood and styrofoam, and the way we're going to put them together is almost like those Home Depot or Lowe's birdhouses you get. So we're going to make each section, and then all you have to do is glue them together or nail them together. Each pumpkin is roughly the size of that one, so we will have a weight limit. And it's you just stick them. Oh, sorry. You just stick them on 3 nails, and they hold. And like I said, I'm making 36 of them, and we hope to have it done by October 1st. Yeah.
Any questions? Yes, Ms. Shoemaker?
Have you established your weight limit yet?
No, not yet. So,
Be some trial and error there.
Yeah.
yeah.
that's pretty important. So, any other comments?
No, that's
Just
good,
good
good stuff.
job.
That's awesome.
He
Do we have
present-
to approve this?
Not yet. I think we
No.
have two more.
We're going to do
Go them all at one time? Okay,
So
thanks.
he did this presentation during our Recreation Commission meeting, so he did a really good job on that. So we're excited about this, and we do appreciate it. So, all right, we'll go to our next, the disc golf tee box signage.
So this is another interesting project right here. This is from Josiah Hill Pfeffer. He presented this topic to the Parks and Recreation Commission at the August meeting. We have a 9-hole disc golf course at River Street Park, and he's going to be designing some tee box signage for the disc golf course.
I'm gonna be making these signs at River Street Park. I'm gonna add the hole number, the pole number, and we still need to measure out the distance from the tee box to the hole, and then we're gonna add that on. We're gonna paint the inside of the letters and numbers black, and then we're gonna stain it. We're gonna add a 4x4 post to hold it in, so that we can keep it in.
Is that it? Okay, any questions?
It's a great project.
Great job.
Good job.
Great job.
Thank you. We appreciate it. All right, now we're going to go to the educational informational signage.
So Josiah's brother, Anthony Hill Pfeffer, will be installing educational informational signage at River Street Park. We do have some of this signage at Tuck Park and along the Greenway, but he's going to be designing and installing some at River Street Park. So I'll let him speak a little bit more to that.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Hillpfeffer. I'm going to be making informational signs about plants and animals at River Street Park. I'm going to have about 4 to 8 different signs about different plants and animals that are at that park. I'm going to have either a 8 or 10 by 12 sign or a 12 by 20. I haven't decided what, because I need to know how much information I'm going to have on those signs. I have different. I have a company that's going to help me make those signs. They're going to like print out how big it's going to be. They're going to put vinyl, and I'm going to be applying polyasperic coating to help it from the sun. Any questions?
Any questions?
Another good job.
Yeah, thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Good job.
All right, so we need a motion to approve these 3 projects, the Eagle Scout projects. Ms. Harris and Mr. Reeves, all in favor? Motion passes. Thank you guys for being here and all this hard work that you're doing. All right, we're going to go to our public comment at this time. First up is Ms. Stephanie McLaughlin. If you would, state your name and address.
Good evening, Stephanie McLaughlin, 308 Piedmont Avenue. Sorry, I was almost a little late. I was over at Arts on the Greenway for our monthly meeting. So I'm going to represent tonight both Arts Mount Holly for the Community Development Foundation and Arts on the Greenway. As many of you know, our president at Arts on the Greenway had a stroke about a month ago, and she's still in recovery, so we're struggling and pedaling as fast as we can. But we are thrilled to thank the city for being willing to come over and paint the building. I know that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, and we appreciate it immensely and appreciate the support. As for Arts Mount Holly and the Community Development Foundation, I just want to publicly say that we are having our Arts Mount Holly 6th annual plein air event coming up September 19th through the 21st. That is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll do the wet paint sale and reception at Arts on the Greenway from 5 to 6 p.m. on Saturday. Invitations are forthcoming. We have really appreciated the support from the city and from our local businesses. We're anticipating having up to 30 middle school, high school youth participating this year, as well as a number of very popular and fantastic professional artists, adults. Additionally, at the art crawl that we had in May, Jennifer Clemens, who many of you may recognize as one of our artists that won Best of Show in the art crawl, she was here for the crawl, did a painting outside of Troush Brewery, and because she is unable to make it this year, has donated that painting for us to do an auction. So we'll do a live auction of the painting at that event as well. So we're really looking forward to it. We're looking forward to the community participating, and I hope to see you all there. Additionally, art by Art Carlos Cotera, who is one of our artists at Arts on the Greenway, has done a painting from 9/11, and it is available. We are working very hard to find a great place for it, hopefully either between our chief of police, our city police, and between the pack, we'll be able to find a good home for this painting. So that's all I have, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. Next, we have Ms. Ruth Neely.
Hi, I'm Ruth Neely, 159 Patrick Lane. I just am here representing Mount Holly Community Development Foundation. We just wanted to come and remind people that we are still active, still doing lots of stuff. We do still have the frogs doing the hikes, Arts Mount Holly that supports and sponsors lots of things, the pollinator garden, which we have fun over at Tuck Park, and I think you should go look at it if you haven't been out there recently, because it's another beautiful season and it looks fabulous. And so we just want to let you know that we're here to partner with you, the city and the businesses in Mount Holly, and our goal is to do whatever we can to make it a better place to live. And so if there's things that we as the foundation can do that the city can't do, which I know you guys are aware of that because you've asked us to do things before, and we have happily been able to accomplish that. But if there's other ideas of things that we should be focusing on and that we can do, we would love to take it on. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neely. Okay, we're going to move on to old business. Discussion of the Tourism Development Authority. Mr. Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last month, I brought this issue to the council about the possibility of expanding the TDA, that being the Tourism Development Authority. The TDA is a group of members that are appointed by the council in order to oversee the funds that are generated from the hotel occupancy taxes here in Mount Holly. Currently, we have a 3-member board. Staff is proposing a 5-member board, 2 of those members being representatives from the hotel, and then 3 additional members that have an interest in tourism and meets the original statute and the original authority that was granted the city of Mount Holly. So before the council tonight is a resolution which would provide for that 5-member authority, and also a revision to the ordinance to provide for 5 members instead of 3. Mr. DuPont and I have been reaching out to different people who may be interested. We currently have a representative from the Fairfield Inn that is on the TDA. We're going to be meeting with the Holiday Inn later this week, and hopefully have a list of appointees for council's consideration at the work session later this month. So happy to discuss either of these matters or discuss further based on council's direction.
Any questions for Mr. Blanton? Mr. Huff?
I make a motion that we pass Resolution 0909-2024A for 5 members to be appointed to the TDA by the City Council.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Huff, second by Ms. Shoemaker. All in favor? Motion passes. All right.
One more motion to provide for the ordinance revision.
Okay, we need one more motion to provide for the ordinance amendment. Ms. Shoemaker, second by Mr. Craig. All in favor? Motion passes. All right. All right, next on old business, we have the Duke Energy River Bend Access Draft Agreement. Mr. Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last month, we had representatives from Duke Energy that made a presentation regarding their desire to see the city lease the property that they are currently doing improvements to at the Riverbend access. Since then, we've dug into the issue. We've heard a lot of feedback from the community surrounding the project. And Duke asked that the council approve or give notice by October 1st for a non-binding letter of commitment with the hope that we would be able to lease the property towards the end of the year. Wanted to bring these concerns back to the council. I shared with you all the feedback that we received. There's still a lot of questions, of course, a lot of studying, a lot of research that we should do, such as how much is a fee going to be? What is this budget going to look like? How much is this going to cost the city in the long term? What are going to be the police, fire, parks and rec amenities, personnel that's going to be necessary? We're happy to dive into that deeper if council has an interest in looking at that non-binding letter to be sent to Duke by October 1. So before you tonight, really looking for direction from council if you would like to proceed and what additional questions, issues, or specifics you would like to see in that eventual lease, but more or less whether we're prepared to bring a draft letter of non-binding commitment back for your review in 2 weeks.
Questions? Mr. Meadows?
So if the city were not to take the lead on running this area, who would?
And thank you for that, Mr. Meadows, because I've received a lot of comments, a lot of questions from citizens over the last few weeks that seem to want to know if the city has any way to stop this from happening. There are a lot of people that are concerned, have questions primarily surrounding the campground, and we've assured anyone that's reached out that the campground is not part of these plans. Duke is committed to moving forward with this project with or without the city being the person to eventually lease it. They did a similar project in Belmont where the city of Belmont forewent the opportunity to lease this, and they punted back to Gaston County overseeing that. So this is required by Duke's permitting. They will be continuing with this project with or without the city's commitment.
So, I wasn't here the last meeting. I apologize for not being present, but it seems like we are probably in a better place, to be involved in it and driving it and directing it rather than having to react to whatever the county decides to do with it, is kind of where I'm at with it so far. I mean, there's still some of those questions that you mentioned, that what's the fee going to be, how much we're going to be collecting, how is this going to be reset, and some of those things to have a better idea of what it actually is going to cost. I generally like the idea, but I'm generally driven by math, and I haven't seen any yet.
Mr. Craig?
From what I know, I feel like I'd rather be in control of it as with the city. And I think we can maybe keep the citizens happier if we're in control, if it's something out of our reach, instead of giving it back to Gaston County, having to contact their people, then something being handled. I'd rather keep it in-house if it makes sense on paper, of course, but that's kind of where my head is right now.
Ms. Harris?
I don't mind doing it, but I just would like to know what the maintenance is gonna be, because the bathrooms, that's one thing that bothers me. There's no water and sewer, so that means that we'll have to take care of all of that too. So, how would we know what the maintenance would be on it?
Yes, I agree. Mr. Meadows?
Yeah, I think what she's referencing is the vault toilets, which have to be vacuumed out upon occasion. What we have to balance that against, having done a fair amount of camping, urban campgrounds with water and sewer attract other nuisances, and so we'll have to kind of study that a bit and get a better idea of what are we foregoing by having the water and sewer versus what are you gaining as far as functionality versus somebody being able to bathe and some other things that the running water and sewer draws at other campgrounds. So definitely a question that I pose to staff of how often does that have to occur, what does that cost, and getting basically a septic tank vacuumed out is short and relatively expensive. So and they obviously don't smell great, but
It's a lot of ongoing maintenance. We could approach Duke either way. It's up to council. Mr. Huff, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead and finish, Mr. Mayor.
I was just going to say that, if we were to run water and sewer, I don't know what that would cost, $300,000, $400,000 maybe. Duke, they netted $2.9 billion last year. They can, and if we're going to take this over for decades, we need to have a little bit more input on it, as far as the maintenance. Because, you know, even if we charge $8 a car for people coming in, how far is that going to go? You know, as far as the maintenance part of it. So that's one of the things my concern is the maintenance part of it. Mr. Huff?
Well, I think another point of view, it's 69 acres, is that
68.
68 acres of land that's being really given to the city of parkland that is going to be available for citizens to use. We wouldn't be able to afford that amenity anywhere. And they're going to build it out, they're going to give it to us, and we have to take care of it versus building it, which would be millions of dollars. That, you know, God's doing a lot of things, but he's not making any more land. I know Mr. Michael and Marie use that. You know, this is a really significant piece of property that the FERC licensing is required to do, regardless whether we take it over or not. It's going to be done. And has been stated, yeah, there are considerations for maintenance, but I think in the end, you know, we have to look at what's for the better good of our citizens. I would rather we depend on our staff and our people to respond when there's an issue, because we're already doing it. Where do you think the county's going to get the manpower to respond to issues out there? It's going to be through mutual aid in Mount Holly. You know, I can look back there and the chief, who's going to report there? We are. So why not have control about what happens, how much is charged, and actually collect the money that we're not collecting now and already providing those services in that area? So I think it makes perfect sense to do it. Yes, there are going to be costs. There are costs to everything we do, okay? But I think in the end, we get a recreational area, and I don't want to correct my fellow council member, but he said campground about 3 times, and I know what you meant, but there's enough people out there going, see, he said campground. And that is not what he meant in that scenario, because there is no campground there. It's a camping. There are going to be people out there serving that area and fishing and swimming and doing what they're going to do, but we're not building a campground, so that was significant in the discussions up there. So that's my comments on it. Hopefully we'll look at a relationship with Duke to move forward.
Ms. Harris?
By no means did I say I wasn't for this. I am for it, but I want to know how much it's going to cost.
Sure.
Bottom line, I want to know how much we're going to have to pay for this.
Mr. Reeves?
Basically, I've read over that, and those are some good questions. I think the staff is going to do a good job and get us a cost analysis on that. And I'm concerned with it, like all of us are, of how much that's going to cost us. But I'm like Mr. Craig, we're and Mr. Huff, this is a great opportunity for the city to have control of this and not be controlled by the county and us be responding anyway. I mean, you know, but I am concerned about the cost like everybody else. But
Yeah, Ms. Harris?
One question I would like to ask is, why did Belmont turn it down? Does anybody know that answer?
Well, I think because of maintenance. That's one of the things that I was told, but, you know, that's one person. But that's, you know, that's them, and, you know, we're a whole different entity here, and, you know, this is a great opportunity for our citizens, I think. We've just got to do it the right way, and we've got to have our input on it, you know, as far as what you're going to build and how you're going to build it. You know, it's great that they're going to spend all this money, and they're going to do it like in 18 months, I think.
Right.
So, but we need to have a little input on it, you know. Mr. Huff?
One last thing, Mr. Mayor, you know, the FERC licensing process has been going on for the last 20 years. We've had representatives from Mount Holly, Tim Eldridge, and the rest involved in giving input on what's going to be there.
Right.
So this just didn't happen yesterday. So I don't, you know, we've had input.
Right.
And we've had a lot of input. So they're just doing what they have to do to maintain their license. Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a motion we approve the draft agreement with Duke Energy.
Okay. I have a motion. Mr. Craig, second. All in favor? It is a unanimous vote. Thank you. So we're going to move forward with that. Mr. Blanton, you have your marching orders on that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Just to be clear, we will bring back a draft letter of non-binding commitment, and then we'll continue to work out the specifics of the final detail, incorporating the information that we find from council's inquiries and additional feedback that is exclusive to the project here in Mount Holly. For now, if council is comfortable, we will come back with a non-binding agreement for you all to review in 2 weeks, as well as information regarding these concerns. I don't think that we were looking to adopt the.
Well, my
draft
motion was to go forward with the draft agreement. Right?
Yes.
I mean, if you need it to be differently, then we can do it.
Maybe so, Mr. Councilman Huff, because the agreement itself is not ready to be approved. I think that Mr. Blanton was more looking for council direction instead of a vote. So perhaps the motion would be to direct Mr. Blanton to come back in 2 weeks with a non-binding letter of intent.
I love having two attorneys in the room. I've heard non-binding about 20 times tonight.
Apologize, sir, but this
No,
was
that's
missing
okay.
several things.
Non-binding, whatever's
So you want to
legalities.
amend your motion?
I amend my motion to have a non-binding draft potential almost agreement with Duke Energy at our next meeting.
Much appreciated.
All right.
Welcome.
Mr.
Second.
Craig, you're good? All in favor? All right, unanimous. All right.
Mr. Mayor, related to that topic as well, there were preliminary conversations with wildlife that I think our law enforcement folks would like to kind of button up since we're heading in this direction now. There were some preliminary conversations, apparently some pretty steadfast kind of separations between what one can and can't do depending on what law officer they are. And I think that there are some things that our folks would like to be able to address that wildlife seem to be okay with, that would require an MOU between us and them where we can kind of address some of those things. I've mentioned this to the city manager, but one of the things that I think that the community has been most concerned about is, yes, it's a boat ramp, but when one brings a boat to a ramp, it should meet certain specifications. And there was some discussion about, I just don't pull up with a boat and drive through, that there was some, potential processing of, I got to prove that it has a title, I got to prove that it actually has paid the fees, and that it is, maybe goes through a safety, check at some point to get a card that I drive by and say, hey, I'm supposed to be here with the boat. And our folks had expressed some interest in having the ability to carry that out. So we're getting to that point now where some of those details starting to matter. So I'd love to see our folks talking to wildlife, because they only have a couple of people per county, as I understand it. And, they do well when you get 7 or 8 of them together, but our folks could address some of the issues on hand if they were able to delegate some of that authority, as I understood it. So love to see us go after that. I don't know if there's something on the fire side that's similar, but I do know on the law enforcement side that there were some things that we'd like to be able to do.
Ms. Shoemaker, did you have something?
I did, and I'm sure that this is probably a no-brainer for staff, but I'd be very interested in seeing, obviously, an estimate, but, Councilwoman Harris had mentioned, like, she wants to see the numbers. Like, I'd really love to see almost like an estimated, like, P&L, just to have an idea of, it would give us a set point for, like, what's a realistic price that we could have, parks that are similar to this, or even the activity that we see there currently, like, what would we anticipate, like, on a monthly basis, revenue-wise, like, what would the actual expenses be? I know that this would be humongously an estimation, obviously, because it would all be highly dependent on the popularity of the area after we start charging a fee for it, and things like that, but it'd be nice to see an actual kind of profit and loss as to whether, just get a sense of what the actual expenses would be, because we're all kind of spitballing ideas. Like, I have no idea how much it costs to empty a vault toilet. You can't, like, no idea, no concept. I don't have a septic tank, never had one. Thank you, city services. I don't have to worry about that. But, like, how often does that happen? How expensive is it? Like, how much toilet paper are we buying? Just really kind of basic stuff, but what would we kind of need to charge per car? And there's been some speculation of, like, could it be possible for, like in-city citizens to have, like, a reduced rate? Like, if you're a Mount Holly citizen, you come in for $4. If you're outside the city, maybe $8. I don't know if that's even legal. I don't know, but I'd like to see us, like, maybe look at a couple of options there, or what the pricing might be, and just to make sure that, I know that it will be variable month by month and how many people are coming in and that type of thing, but it'd be really nice to know that whatever the expected crowds that we have coming would actually offset most of the cost. Like, I'm looking at this, and I think that Councilman Huff is also looking at this as probably the cost of coming in will offset the cost of maintenance. And that's what I would like, that's what's happening in my head, is that we're really not going to incur a lot of costs, but I need to see that on paper.
Mr. Huff?
Just to remind everybody, and I know it's been a while, but we did that over a year ago. And we made a field trip, staff made a field trip down to South Carolina to a similar situation that Duke had, came back with the figures. So we're not operating in the dark. So for us specifically, yeah, I mean, we got to do that. And whatever a reasonable fee is, Duke has got to approve that. And that reasonable fee is kind of like the non-binding almost agreement. It is, what is that? Because I don't know yet. So I think that's something we have to keep in mind. But I think when we were doing more due diligence about, like I said, a year or so ago, we answered a lot of those questions just based on estimated traffic that we were going to have versus what they have, and then how that came out. I don't remember how much it was, but I remember us looking in depth at it.
One last one.
Mr. Meadows?
So if we're going to look at the operating side as well, it would probably be good to have that offset by what is the actual investment that Duke is making, what is that estimated budget, and what would it cost to acquire 68, however many acres on the river? What does that represent as far as the opportunity costs we're not having to spend as well? You know, I know when we went through the greenways, there was some discussion about, well, you know, that's going to be this much to maintain it, but when you compared that to the efforts that the Community Development Foundation and others had made for the investment, it was, you know, very small in comparison. It was a couple $1 million worth of capital versus, you know, $15,000 or $30,000 a year in your ongoing maintenance. It would have taken a very long time to capture even the capital costs. So it'd be nice to have that in context.
Anything else? All right. Mr. Blanton, is that your direction?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
All right. We'll move on to new business. Review and consider approval of an update to section 15148D, minimum standards of fitness, and 15150A5, responsibilities of owners and occupants in the city code of laws to ensure that the requirement for the provision of air conditioning is made clear. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Due to some recent minimum housing cases, some properties have air conditioning, but they're not in good working order. So staff sees the need to update the city code of laws. The minimum housing code is vague when mentioning air conditioning requirements in residential dwellings, and this update would make the requirement of the provisions of air conditioning clearer while helping staff hold property owners accountable and ensure that tenants have a safe environment in which to live. Staff is here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Livingston? If we have none, we need a motion for the proposed update to the city code of laws.
I got
Mr.
I got
Huff?
one question.
Okay. Mr.
So,
Greg?
so the state, is it state or nationally where a landlord doesn't have to provide air conditioning? Because would this ordinance?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know it's a general statute. That would be state. I don't know about federal.
Because the only reason I ask is just because, like, if enforcing this, like, would it be something that we could actually enforce?
It would be enforced through the general statutes. That would be state.
Mr. Meadows?
So maybe this will help. So could you explain a situation where a code case might come out? You know, explain the scenario.
Sure. So we do have one currently in which they have air conditioning units established. It's just they're not maintained in good working order, so we would require them from our current code to bring it up to standards, but because it's so vague, we don't really know how to explain it best to the property owners. So we're wanting to try to update that so that when we have hearings, we can better, I guess, educate our property owners.
Mr. Meadows?
So what you're saying is that if I go and enter a lease with somebody and they tell me I have air conditioning and I get there and it doesn't function, and I call the landlord and say, hey, my air conditioning doesn't work, and they go, so what? You know, they can call the city and say, I've got an issue here with the air conditioning because it was promised the system is there, but the landlord is not investing in keeping the equipment in good order. Is that the general
We could
idea?
contact the city and we could,
So you would have something in the ordinance, or you'd have something in the city's code enforcement standards to implement them actually having to take action to fix that.
Mr. Craig?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but like, heat is the only thing that you have to have, correct?
by state, yeah, it's vague, but yes.
Okay, because I still want to know that about if the state would trump the city ordinance and would kind of like wash it out. Because like, okay, well, they have heat, the heat works. Or if it's the summer and this happens and there's no AC, but we're like, okay, well, you don't need any air conditioning. I don't want that to be an issue.
Right.
And so I'm just really asking for clarification.
Ms. Anders?
So that appears to be, to me, to be a legal question, so I'd like to take staff off the spot on that one. It's my understanding that local government does have the ability to set minimum standards of fitness, does not have to be preempted by the state building code, if that's what you're asking.
Yep.
So we do already have minimum standards of fitness, minimum housing ordinance that requires plumbing, indoor plumbing, for example, as well as heating, like you already mentioned. And this ordinance amendment would also state that air conditioning in safe and working order would also be required.
Okay.
Mr. Meadows?
So I think what he might be driving at as well is that if I have a unit that does not have air conditioning, I guess my question is, we're not putting something on the books now that requires me to come back and retrofit an old unit to have air conditioning, correct?
Ms. Anders?
My interpretation, if you adopt the ordinance the way it's been proposed right now, that it could require retrofitting. If council wishes to amend it to state that it wouldn't require retrofitting, but if there was already air conditioning, that it be kept in good working order, then that would have to be brought back to you with that statement in there.
For me, that's a non-starter. That's an undue burden to put on somebody who might have had a house for 50 years without air conditioning, and now somebody comes to us and says, you got to put air in this. That's not quite right. I was under the impression that the way that this was written was that the scenario we gave, I've contracted and I had an expectation that certain amenities would be provided, and they're not in good working order, and they're refusing to put there. I didn't see this as a putting on our landowners, our property owners, an undue burden. I don't know how people do it, but they do live without air conditioning and only have heat, and they've managed to get along just fine for quite some time. I don't think it's quite right for us to impose that upon them.
If that's the wish of the council, then I can work with staff to bring that back.
Mr. Huff?
I agree with Mr. Meadows.
Okay.
I'd like to see new construction and anything with I think what Mr. Meadows was saying was like with anything with a pre-existing unit should be working.
Okay. All right, so,
And I might have missed it. I have a question.
all right, Mr. Craig.
I was looking here through this earlier. Is there anything on window units and?
We can add that if it's not in there.
What do you mean by anything on window units? It just says air conditioning. It doesn't specify central versus window. Right now, it doesn't specify.
Okay.
So if, let us know what feedback you have so we can bring that back.
Okay. Yeah, so with a window unit, like since it doesn't state specifically, it would be nice to put, I feel like, in that, unless it just falls under that umbrella of all air conditioning.
Right now, it could be, the ordinance, the way it's written, could be followed by central air or window unit.
Okay. Well, that's fine with me. As long as
Okay.
works out with it.
I think, Mr. Livingston, this needs a little bit more teeth in this ordinance, right? All right, any other questions? Good. All right, so we just need a motion to approve this proposed update to the city code? I'm sorry, or this is just for information? Right, okay. All right, we're gonna move on. Number 2, our manager report, Mr. Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have several announcements for the public and the council. Tonight it is a very busy and very exciting time here in Mount Holly. We have a lot of capital projects that are finally coming into fruition. Over the next few days, we're going to get even more progress on some of them. Tomorrow, we will have the bid opening for the Ransom Hunter Park. That's going to be held here at the municipal complex. We are very much looking forward to those proposals and getting those back to council as we move forward with the upfitting of the Ransom Hunter Park in the upcoming days. Also, on Friday, we received the sealed plans for the Dutchman Creek Bridge and Kayak launch. That's a long time coming and something that we are very excited to continue to get ready to put out to bid and bring back for the council, with renderings and more information in the upcoming days. Also, over the past few days and over the past few months, we have heard and received a lot of complaints about the sound and audio here in council chambers. Just last week, staff met to finalize the proposals necessary to upfit sound and audio here in council chambers, so that will soon be becoming a reality in the upcoming days. So certainly have heard those complaints and moving forward to make sure that those are addressed. Council released the RFP for the South Gateway Road Connector at the August work session, and that will be going through November 4th. Looking forward to getting that project, Phase 1, kicked off and going here in Mount Holly. On that same note, the wastewater decommissioning continues to move forward. We are working with our consultant, HDR, in the hopes that we will have that plant decommissioned by the end of 2025. Also, another project that has got a lot of attention and a lot of questions is the solid waste collection. We will be opening bids for those on September 30th. So we will ensure that council has that information, public has that information as we evaluate the best course of action going forward with recycling and solid waste collection. That's just a quick update on some of the projects that we have going on, but we also have a lot of events going on. Next week, September the 18th at 9:30 a.m., we will be having the ribbon cutting for the mural at Pinewood Elementary. We are very much looking forward to getting that ribbon cutting and showcasing one of the fantastic ways that we are increasing vibrancy through art and placemaking here in Mount Holly. This Friday, hope you guys can come out and join us. We will have Mount Holly Nights. We're going to have the 20 Rides, Zach Brown Band, Tribute Band coming up, 6 o'clock. Looking forward to a night, fun and excitement in downtown Mount Holly. Hope you guys can join us. And also on Saturday, the CRO will be having their Taste of the Town fundraiser right here at the Municipal Complex. That, of course, is for the Community Relief Organization. Tickets are still available. Looking forward to make sure that we have a great night celebrating CRO and the great work that they are doing. Cops and Bobbers will be coming up on Saturday the 14th. Certainly invite members of the public, our kids, to come out and enjoy a great day with our police department at River Street Park as we do some community policing and showcase some of the great work our police department is doing. So certainly invite the public to come to participate in these events. I would like to recognize our new Economic Development Director. Started last week. He's with us tonight, Mr. Matt Black. If you have not met Mr. Black yet, certainly look forward to introducing him to the community as we make our way throughout downtown and continue to progress towards great economic development incentives that we are working on here, and glad to have Matt joining our team. Also, Ruth and Stephanie, thank you both for being here tonight. Appreciate the great work that you guys are doing, and certainly we wish the best for Ms. Campbell. She is in our thoughts and our prayers. That is all that I have tonight, Mr. Mayor. That's a lot.
All right, so we're going to move on to closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318, 11A, 3 and 5, real property acquisition. I need a motion to go into closed session. Mr. Craig and Ms. Shoemaker, all in favor? It's unanimous. We are now in closed session.
Yeah, Friday night.